Hey traders, John Howell here. Today I want to do something a little bit different for you. See, I want to move back away from the whole chart reading, the trading techniques and all that sort of stuff. And I want to step back away from back away from all that techniques. And I want to get to you, I want to walk you through a story where I said, that's it, I've had it, I quit. And where I actually got to in my time when I actually started to trade. But the purpose of me doing this right now is that you may be in the situation where you're at that point where you say, you know what, that's it, I've had it, I quit. This is just not for me. But then also, I'm hoping that there's some things that I actually had to go through that actually led me to doing really well out of trading. So let's actually get straight into the story. When I first started trading was roughly 17 years ago. I had no idea even what a stock was. I'm like, oh, what's this thing called shares? My dad always telling me, listen, go invest in property, right? So always invest in property, invest in property, invest in property. But I didn't even know what the stock market was because none of my family or friends talked about that. So long story short, I actually started learning about the stock market, right? Shares and investing and options trading and all this sort of stuff. And I bought all these different courses from futures trading to options trading to scalping to swing trading to indicators to looking at the bars and looking at candlesticks and subscriptions on live trading rooms and so on and so forth. I did all that sort of stuff. And what ended up happening was there was a period of time where I actually did actually quite well from trading, right? Again, this is going back 7 years ago when I first started. I did actually quite well from trading. And so because because I was actually doing quite well from trading, I actually went to a mate of mine. I'm like, listen, if I can borrow some money off you, man, I'll guarantee you your money back. Which was, I borrowed $200,000 off him and I guaranteed him a $50,000 return at the end of the 12 months. I just needed that 12 months to do my thing and so on and so forth. But what ended up happening was, you probably know what's coming, right? Is I just completely lost it all. And what ended up happening was I actually made some good money with my money, but then when I actually got his money, what ended up happening is that I actually freaked out because now I got $200,000 of someone else's money. So the harebrained idea what I did was that I ended up giving his money, my mate's money, to someone else to trade with. And then I kept trading my account because I think I turned $5,000 into $20,000 or $30,000, something like that there, right? So here I was still trading my money, which by the way, I got lucky when I first started trading and when I actually made all that money. But then when I gave this money, all this $200,000 to someone else to invest for me, because I was like, oh my goodness, this is not my money. Guess what ended up happening? Within say 12 months of starting that process, not only did I lose all my money in my trading account because I got lucky, right? I did really well for initially because I was jumping on a bull market. Some of you guys may be there right now, depending on when you actually see this video, right? So I got lucky. And so then I completely lost all that. And then what ended up happening was then suddenly a guy that was supposedly making 5% a month, now completely lost all that sort of stuff. And within a good 1 to 2 years, I've gone through this long out, drawn out process. Not only did I lose all my money, but I personally guaranteed my mate $50,000, and all I got back from this guy, who I gave him the $200,000, was maybe $10,000 to $20,000 sprinkled throughout the couple of years there. It may get $5,000 here, $10,000 there, $5,000 there type thing, right? So then I gave that whatever I could get back from him, who invested for me, back to my mate, but I still owed this guy money, even though I didn't lose the money. But here I was, like, totally up shit creek. One, I got lucky with my own trading. Secondly, then that luck ran out really quickly because the bull market changed really quickly. And then what ended up happening was it was like, oh my goodness. So then I had to sell my house, had to sell the car, and move back with mother and father-in-law. It was so bad at that time. And so what ended up happening was, it was like, oh my goodness. And so I moved in with my mother and father-in-law. And so what ended up happening was when we moved in with mother and father-in-law, I negotiated times. Listen, I just need a good maybe 1 year of time to sort my stuff out, and then I'll be able to pay you back. I'll be able to pay you all the money for the rent leading up to that time. So I knew there was a deadline coming where there's a point where I had to pay him all the money for the rent that I owed him within the prior 12 months. So, and then I asked my father-in-law for some help. I asked him, could I borrow $5,000 so I can start trading again? And he actually said, yes, no problem. Actually, you can do this. So here I am living with my mother and father-in-law in a spare bedroom on an old mattress on the floor with my wife. And I was supposed to be the big shot trader. Now, the hard thing about this was that I just married my wife at the time 6 months earlier. And here I was, the big shot trader, and I'm all this and I'm all that. No, I wasn't. I was a complete idiot. And so what ended up happening was I actually borrowed his money and I started trading the futures market all night, and I started trading a little bit here, a little bit there. And I remember one night I actually blew my trading account up. No, sorry, I blew 50% of my trading account up. And I went back to bed. I'm just like, oh man, this is not for me. This is just not for me. So back then it was, you could do online trading, but a lot of it too was, back then I also would call my broker. So that was the future trading online. But to do the options trading that I was also doing with the stock market, I had to call the broker to actually place the trades. But this broker was with me for a couple of years or more as I was going through this process. So anyway, what ended up happening was, I just said, you know what, this is not for me. And my father-in-law, my mother-in-law saying, listen, you just need to go get a real job. Go get a real job. Why don't you go to, a chicken outlet and start to cook chicken for a living, Why don't you just become a, fast food restaurant chef, right? There actually, you can become a good chicken shifter, a good chicken cooker. I'm like, chicken cooker? Not for me. And I just always wanted to do well out of trading. Like, oh my goodness, how do I do this? So it was one of those times where I actually called up my broker and said, listen, I just don't think I can do this anymore. He said to me, John, there's actually a guy who actually trades with me. He's a really good trader. I believe he can help you if he's willing to help you. I'll see if I can get him. I'll see if it's okay if I send you his details. So long story short, my broker actually got into one of his traders who was a 7-figure trader at the time. Now he's like an 8-figure trader because I've stayed with him ever since. But initially when my actual broker sent me his details, I contacted this guy. I said, listen, can you help me out? And he said, no. And again, I remember at this time, guys, I was about to say, I was at the point where I said, that's it. I quit. I've had enough. I can't believe it. And the reason why I said that was because I just spent many, many, many years buying all these courses, doing all the subscriptions, doing all that sort of stuff. And here I was, $250,000 in debt, owing my mate money, living with my father-in-law. And then suddenly now also, I've got a son along the way. And she says 8 months time because I'm a month pregnant. I'm like, oh my goodness. So what ended up happening was I actually contacted this guy and I said, listen, can you help me out? And he said, after thinking about it, John, no, I'm just going to stay quiet and just do my own thing. So a month later, I emailed him again. He said no. A month later, I emailed him again. A week later. A week later, I emailed him again. A week later, I emailed him again as well too. And he said, okay, John, I'll help you, but this is going to be hard for you, but the investment is $10,000. And if you can do that, and you're willing to listen to everything I tell you to do, even though it's going to be tough, then we can get started. I'm just like, 10 grand. I think I got 2,500 in my trading account. Remember, I borrowed $5,000 from my father-in-law. So I got I got maybe 2 grand, maybe 2.5 grand in the account. That's it. I am just on my last breath, my last bed here. And so what ended up happening was at that time, long story short, I don't know how I did it, but I ended up borrowing $10,000 from my father-in-law. It was like, here I was now, owed all him the money for the rent and owed him $15,000, $5,000 for the trading account, and then 10 grand for the money. So I actually went and invested in this guy. And the big thing when I actually invested in this guy, did $10,000, I had no idea what I was actually doing because I was always looking for the strategy or the market, I was always looking for that, right? But he said, but one thing that ended up happening was he actually took me through a 90-day drill. And the drill was, okay, John, here is a setup. Okay, this is the exact setup, simple rules. And every time you see this setup, this is how I want you to enter it. This is how I want you to exit it, and so on and so forth. And he said the 90-day, he called it the drill back then. It's like a 90-day challenge. Like a 90-day challenge is that for the next 90 days, you're not to do anything but take this setup only. And he said, and then that's your next 90 days. He said, then at the end of the 90 days, I want you to come and see me. And then we can start to go from there. And he said, but I don't want to hear this crap. I don't want to hear anything of why. I don't want to hear any reason or bullshit story of reasons why you actually took something that didn't meet this one plan. If it doesn't look like this, you don't take it. I don't care how long you have to wait. You might have to wait a whole month for one trade. I don't care. Your job, you want me to teach you how to do well? This is your job. And so what ended up happening was I stuck to that plan for like 3 months. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. The reason why it was the hardest thing I had to do was because the hardest thing was just sitting there sometimes for a whole week and not taking a trade. And then the following week, I might have a couple of really good trades. And then the next week, I might have a lot of good trades. And then I might go through a 2-week period of no trades. So it was that discipline of not doing anything when it was those quiet periods. That was always the hard thing for me, right? Because I'm always like, I want to trade, I need to make money, And what ended up happening was that, what ended up happening is at the end of the 90 days, it was the hardest thing I had to do, but it snapped something in my mind. And then I went back to my mentor, I showed him my results. He goes, wow, look at you. He said, you're getting over a 90% success rate with this system. And he goes, and he said, and look how much your growth of your account or how well you've actually done over the 90 days. And he said, so this is what I want you to do from now on. Just keep doing the same thing. And I'm like, what? He said, just keep doing the same thing. He said, there's going to be periods of time where you're not going to have any trades, and you just must accept that. But there's going to be periods of time where there are going to be a lot of trades. You need to be ready for it. But in those quiet periods when there's nothing going on, you don't take a trade. And it snapped for me. That snapped for me, because then I went, oh my goodness, I've been completely doing this the wrong way. I always thought it was the market, it was the strategy, all this sort of stuff. While we have the strategy out there, I wasn't being consistent to one thing for at least 90 days, right? To figure out whether this is actually really good for me or not. How to actually identify the setup, enter the setup, exit the setup, stop loss management, so on and so forth, right? The one thing, just one thing consistently. And so what ended up happening was that completely shifted the way that I actually did things. And then, cut a long story short, what ended up happening there is that, within 12 months, or at the end of the 12 months, I think it was roughly 8 months, just before my son was actually born, I actually paid back all my mother and father-in-law. And then I moved out into a new house, car, furniture, all that sort of stuff, right? And then I continued up from there, and then I've gotten better and better and better and better and better and better ever since. And so, but as I've gone on as a trader, I've actually learned how to read the charts better, read the market better, and so on and so forth. Makes sense? So my hope out of telling these guys is that, one, if you're at that point right now, I want to ask you a question, is that how are you approaching the market? Are you approaching the market like I was my first couple of years, where I was just all over the place and wasn't really focused on one thing? And if you are, you're probably doing that right now. But also, the truth about these markets is that these markets produce patterns, and these patterns have a success rate. And sometimes these patterns don't appear when you want it to appear, right? Sometimes these patterns take time. It might take a week for that pattern to appear in the markets, and so on and so forth. And so when you do that, that's when you start to do that, if you can start to quieten down those noises in the markets, that's when you can start to really do well from the markets, right? That's when you can start to do well. And that's what ended up happening to me. And before you know it, here I was just wanting to make 6 figures a year. And before you know it, sometimes I was doing that per month. You know what I mean? Now that wasn't every month, guys, but but some months would be like, oh my goodness, I wish I could make $100,000 a year. And then suddenly following this process, because I bumped up my positions from $1,000 a trade to $5,000 a trade to $20,000 a trade. I bumped it up as I continued on with this here. Before you know it, I just needed a couple of good trades per month, and I was making $50,000, $60,000, sometimes $100,000 a month. So I realized it wasn't me taking a lot of trades, but it was me taking the only trades that I was really, really comfortable taking. And then before you know it, throughout the year, I wasn't taking a lot of trades. I might only be taking maybe a couple of dozen, maybe 2 or 3 dozen trades at the most throughout the entire year. Now this is trading the daily charts. If I'm trading the intraday charts, there'll be a lot more trades, but this is just trading the daily charts 1 hour. But, but then, sometimes making 10, 20, maybe 30 grand per trade. And obviously I have my losses in there, but you can see what I'm saying, right? They average out. It's like and then sometimes there'll be months where there'll be no trades, and there'll be months where there are trades. So that's what really kicked it into gear for me. And my number one hope out of doing this for you is that you need to ask yourself, if you're serious about being involved with these markets here, are you consistently following one thing? And if not, well, that's your downfall. And if tomorrow you wake up, or tomorrow you do the trading thing again, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is this is obviously not, this is, what's the word for it? This is, then you're just going to go follow, like you got to take a trade because of a YouTube video and all that sort of stuff. You can see why that's actually never a good idea, right? It's always about a plan and consistently sticking to that plan. That's where your success in these markets are going to come from. Make sense, guys? So you know what, traders? If you do need some help, maybe setting up your plan or you getting an exit strategy, so on and so forth, I've actually set up some spots for you to talk to me personally. If you like my help, then there should be a link in the description. Go there, go fill out the application form, and then on the application form, once you fill it out, I'll give you some free training as well too after that. But then that'll actually book a time for you and I to actually have a talk this following week. And my goal in that there is just to see whether, because I've actually gone through that crap, my goal is to actually to see you on this call. It's like a free coaching call to see where you are right now, where you're going, or where you want to go. And maybe let's actually start to connect the dots like my coach did for me, right? Because I had no idea. And it wasn't until I actually went to my coach, he actually started to help me, and then things actually started to change around for me. So if you really want to get ahead in the markets, then I strongly recommend you actually book a call with me right now. Again, it's free. I'm actually just doing it for the next day or two, just as a way of saying thank you for being my subscriber. And I've just passed 30,000 subscribers, so I'm so excited. So as a way of celebrating that as well too, I'm just giving away some free coaching calls to really help you move forward. So guys, link in the description below right now. Go click on that, and I look forward to seeing you real soon.